Almost 100 young Canadians are serving time in foreign prisons for smuggling marijuana, hashish, or other drugs. As more and more young people spread out across the globe, drawn by low-cost charter fares and a desire to see the world, we can expect an increasing number of them to wind up in jail. Some simply take a chance trying to pick up easy money. Some of them deliberately turn to smuggling, and some of them are trapped into it. In spite of official warnings, the kids ignore the severity of sentences. They can get up to 15 years for hashish smuggling in some countries. The Canadian government can't influence judgments and sentences, and most of the kids will have to serve their full terms. Tonight we report on an exception. In this case, a 22-year-old girl was acquitted of a hashish smuggling charge, but only after serving 4 months in a cell in Beirut, Lebanon. The man who fought for the acquittal is Toronto lawyer Harold Kimberley. On Wednesday, he left for Lebanon for a final court hearing. It was his 4th trip to Beirut in the past 5 months. His client, 22-year-old Susan Hodgins, is also his niece. She was arrested and jailed in July. Susan protested her innocence from the outset. She said she had been taken in by a handsome Lebanese named Mohammed, who made her a present of a suitcase. The false bottom of that suitcase was found to contain 3.5 kilos of hashish. Both her mother and her uncle were convinced always of her innocence.
I always felt optimistic that eventually we would be able to secure her release. Susan's father was killed when she was about a year old. He was in the RCAF, and an unfortunate accident down in Trenton resulted in his death. My sister returned to my parents' home in Leaside and lived there for the next probably 7 years until she remarried again. And since then, Susan has lived up in North York with her mother and father and her half-brothers and sisters. Susan has been an independent type of person. She went out to the West Coast a few years back, and eventually, though, she returned to school, and she started school about a year ago at the University of British Columbia, and she had just finished the first year at the University of British Columbia when she took a trip over to the Middle East. She tends to be happy most of the time. At least this is the appearance that she gives me when I visit her in jail. On some occasions she's depressed and she wonders if she's ever going to get out of jail. And she can't understand why she has to stay there and why they won't believe the story.
Susan Hodgins was released yesterday afternoon in Lebanon, and she's back now in Toronto. Susan, you stand as something of an object lesson for all of the young people who want to wander around the Middle East or anywhere else. And I'm just wondering if you were not aware in advance of going over there, the tremendous numbers of warnings on television and the newspapers warning people to not to get hooked into this. You've read the stories and everything else. How did you get involved in any way in something like this when you'd heard the warnings? You must have heard the warnings.
Well, you don't suspect things. You learn to trust people over here. And, you know, I met this boy, and it never occurred to me, you know, to think of hashish in the suitcase, you know. I never thought of it for 1 minute.
What was it like in that jail?
Oh, God. I lived in a room. The foreigners have 2 rooms, and in the middle's a bathroom. My particular room, I share with 4 other girls, 3 other girls, I'm 4. And it's 4 feet 7 inches wide and 14 feet long and 14 feet high. So it's like living in a very narrow coffin. And we slept on the floor, and it was constantly flooded, and the walls drip, and there's cockroaches and leeches, and there's rats in the basement. And it's just incredible. You know, there's no water to bathe in. There's a tap that comes out and right next to the toilet. You have to almost have 1 foot in the toilet, which is a hole, you know, to be able to bath, which is a tap that comes out cold water only, and I mean freezing. And it's cold inside the prison too. Not in summer, it's really hot, but in the winter it's like a tomb in there, like an Egyptian tomb, and I have like 4 or 5 blankets over me, and I wear socks and 2 pairs of pajamas to bed, and sometimes you even get into your pants and your sweaters and wear them to bed too. You get so cold.
There are other Canadians in that prison, I understand.
Well, there's one other Canadian. It's just a prison for women. There's one other girl in there, and there's 7 other boys, but they're in different prisons.
Are there Americans and Other?
Oh yeah, we have a couple English girls, I think 4 German girls, 2 Danes, a Swede, you know, you name it.
What would you say to, after your experience, what would you say to young people heading over to that part of the world, or to Spain or Morocco or any of these other countries?
Don't trust anybody, nobody. I just can't. I can't say it strong enough. Like, no matter how friendly people seem, you know, they're so poor there that they just think of only one thing, you know, to make money, you know. They really are poor. You know, you can feel sorry for them. They're really starving.
You thought you were doing someone a favor?
Oh, no, no. This was a present, the suitcase.
He gave you a suitcase for a present and it was loaded
Yeah.
with hash. How do you explain these governments who allow the growing of hashish quite freely, and then stick people in prisons for many years for having any involvement with it?
Well, they're supposed to be, you know, the government is supposed to be enforcing that their growing is not made, but it is. And, you know, what can I say? You know, it shouldn't be, but it is. And
Must give you a very helpless feeling.
Yeah.
I gather that the embassy in Beirut was very helpful, but there's nothing they could do.
oh,
you
they
could
were
have,
wonderful to me.
You could have been over there for, what, how many years?
3,
You could have spent 3 years
yeah.
at hard labor.
Well, it's supposed to be hard labor, but hard labor, they lock you in at 5 at night, they let you out at 7 in the morning, and there's no really place to go outside you have a small corridor and a small inner courtyard where we can hang our clothes up. And
How did the guards treat you?
well, depends on their mood. They would never beat us or hurt us, but you know, they're human beings, I imagine. The same as anybody else. They get their moods and they yell and scream a bit, but on the whole they're not too bad.
How's the food?
We can't eat the Arab food. It's, you know, stewed in grease and for 5 hours too. So we used to have certain times when we could make use of the kitchen, which just consisted of a little gas burner, and we'd make food. And there's a woman from my embassy used to come every week and bring groceries and everything. So we had pancakes on Sunday morning sometimes.
Could you bring food in? Could you buy food? Could you buy?
Yeah, we had a
nice
shopping
things of
every
life?
day, and it had a very limited selection of things you could get. Very limited, and most of it was like Arabic foods anyways. But we could get raw vegetables and fruits brought in, and you know, powdered milk and things that, you know, you needed for essentials too.
You know, when I was about your age, used to have signs in all the railway stations and all the hotel rooms, and they say, warning to young ladies traveling alone, beware of strangers. Did you ever read one of those?
No, I haven't. Really, I've never seen any of those signs about hashish. The other girls have said yes, they have seen some in the hotels, and one saw one in American Express, but honestly, I haven't seen one, you know. Maybe I just haven't been looking in the right places.
What would you say to someone your age tomorrow who said, I want to go to the Middle East?
I'd say take a tour with a group, you know, or else maybe take a camper bus, and, you know, no hitchhiking or anything. It's very dangerous. You know, they might really not come back alive.